this to happen to a Charlie Kirk or a Donald Trump, because I see a lot of people wishing ill upon Donald, and I don't think that you should do that. And the reason why it might surprise you, because it's only going to get worse. See, Charlie was a person that would utilize his voice to push the talking points of what's considered to be the right. He would often criticize and demonize Black youth and Black people and Black culture specifically, right, for a political agenda, while being an overt, Zio. He loves being an overt Zio, right? And recently, the tirade was lock up them violent criminals. It is a culture problem. His last words, his last words, his last words was gang violence. His last words were gang violence. Now, the gang violence he was talking about was not gang violence of white men. He was talking about specific gang violence. I can imagine, without even having a context, just based on everything that he's been tweeting, gang violence from young Black men. Been stereotyping young Black men, even though there's a small percentage of Black people in America who actually do the larger majority of crime that's attributed to Black people in America. And even though everybody keeps saying we're 13% of the population, that is a very skewed number just based on how they're actually counting who's considered to be Black in America. Talking about people that come here that are mixed and different countries that are of brown people and darker origins, that when we see you, we might say you Black, but they don't get counted. So if you count those numbers in, we probably reaching somewhere around 16 to 20%, which gives us a completely different number. And then we would look at whites in America, we ask, who are whites? And even though Arabs can even be considered whites and Asians and different people that come over in this country, that number is skewed to where it's probably not 60%, it's probably somewhere around 50, right? But when we say numbers don't lie, it depends on, you understand me, who's utilizing the numbers and what skew are they utilizing and viewing them from. So numbers absolutely do lie. But again, this week has been a very psychological operative week that people should need to take time to pay attention. Anytime there's something that's happening on your timeline, you have to step back. See, the right is conspiratorial until something happens that they disagree with, then they're no longer. The left is not conspiratorial until there's something that they disagree with, then they want to put on the right. And it's all bullshit. It's all two birds the same wing. I mean, two wings of the same birds. Right? We see violence in France trying to overthrow situations that's happening with Macron and the violence that's happening in France. Nepal, with Gen Z, is trying to overthrow the government in Nepal because of the corruption that's coming out in that government. Then we see what's happening with, the country that shall not be named and how they bombed Qatar. There's somebody named JMX_44X that said, "Why I can't trust you? You act like blacks aren't killing each other." I'm not sure what that got to do anything, Devil, but I'm sure there's plenty of blacks that are killing each other, like there's plenty of whites that are killing each other. I think today is a representation of white on white violence. Would you not agree? And it's an unfortunate case because when something like this happens, it gets politicized fast. Take this narrative and they will push their agenda behind it. Right? So whatever narrative that they want to push behind it, the war games begin. The left is going to push it saying that he shouldn't have created this environment. He was a terrible and nasty figure. The right is going to push it and saying that, look, the right is trying to silence us. This is our problem. You understand me? And we will not be silenced. We're going to continue to fight. Then they're going to hoist him up as the greatest American to ever exist. They're going to hoist him up as the greatest American to ever exist. to evangelize his words. But see, the problem is that you don't want individuals like that, doctor. You don't actually want to create martyrs against yourself. You don't want to create martyrs for a cause. And what they just did is they turned him into a martyr. And somehow I feel like black people will get blamed for this. They turned him into a martyr. See, I seen somebody mad at Donald Trump, and it was like they wanted something to happen to Donald. I'm like, you don't want nothing to happen to Donald Trump. If Donald Trump is no longer there, who you think they're going to put in place? It only gets worse. Narrative warfare is the manipulation of stories so that you can control what people feel and think and perceive reality. And most people don't understand the era that we're in because we're in the middle of two worlds clashing. And in the clashing of these worlds, there's going to be conflict because there's an old world and then there's a new world. And so, just like destruction, construction is violent as well. Because you have to tear down to build up. So, if those who are critics of Black culture and want to see Black culture thrive, and they really care about the stats about how there's violence in the Black community, there's cultural degradation that happens, if they really cared about that, then they would then help fund and or push those of us within Black culture who are aligned with that message and actively doing something to create that impact. But they don't. When you take the worst of us and you try to represent the rest of us, you're not trying to create a positive association and or image that's constructive, and you don't care about Black people. You care about politicizing the degradation that happens in our culture, never getting to the root of it, saying that we as a people genetically have a problem, which is white supremacist rhetoric, so that you can agendacize it for your power and complete domination of a people and a justification of that, so that you continuously dehumanize them, so anything that happens to them is justified. Otherwise, you see what happened with my brother in Chicago. I could talk about how bad the violence in Chicago is, or I can go help support my brothers that got a unity movement in Chicago anytime that I can. I can utilize my platform to push their message, their narrative, the people that surround them. You understand me? I can go out there in the streets with them to lend credibility to what's going on. Or I can say, man, we so violent. Look at our culture. I can go point to the crime that's happening in red states, that's happening in white communities, and I could try to utilize a narrative to show how violent they are. But do I care? No. If I care, then I'm gonna do something that helps. If I care, I'm gonna look at the root of a problem and I'm gonna try to contribute to the solution. See, the problem is that y'all afraid of your own people, and you don't even realize when they're using your lack of intellect against you because they're not creating an environment for you to be respected. I've seen a bunch of Black conservatives that was begging the community, saying that, man, because you gotta it's some of us is nice, some of us can still get along with y'all, and I see all the whites in the comments saying that, nah, it's too late for that, brother. And they was begging to be accepted. They was begging to be accepted. It's like, all right. See, if there was a Black man who had shot Charlie Kirk, this would have been a racial issue instantly. But this is why racial issues in America is always a false flag. Because how is it that if a white man shoots a white man while he's talking about gang violence, You understand me? Then that's a political issue. But if a white man shoots a white man, a black man shoots a white man for the exact same reason, then that's a racial issue. See, each one takes you down a different narrative path. It could have been a black man who had the exact same reasoning as the white dude, but they're going to say this is a culture problem, this is a violence problem. You understand me? This is a prison problem, right? This they're going to contribute to say that these are a very abhorrent, negative, and violent people. But if it's a white man, then it's just a political problem, and it's the left that needs to stop doing these things. The playbook is dependent upon what happens. So it doesn't matter if this is a psyop before; it's always going to be a psyop after. And the race thing is the stupidest thing on the planet, because if you study what's going on in the world, they're studying brainwaves to literally control people and mentally hack you. So these tech feudalists have now joined into a guild and a power circle so that they can run the world, destroy jobs, decrease the necessity for education, push everything into an ultralist surveillance state, completely in democracy, privatize ownership of America. You understand me? Put people into virtual realities, strip away all particular ideas of rights, and utilize their technology and their machines to be able to control the world. Yet somehow race is the problem in America after 500 years. It speaks to the idiocracy of the people and the lack of literacy and their ability to be able to think, because most people are just commenting on headlines. They don't read, they don't research because they don't have time. And that is on purpose, because if you're living check to check, you don't have time to be sitting thinking for a few days that will allow you to arrive to an enlightened thought. And if Black culture is so violent, then why not go at the corporations that benefit from the violence? See, if you want to stop something in anywhere, you always go to the root, because when you root out something, you stop it from growing. So Black violence in America is a real deep problem. Then why not go at the corporations that push Black violence? Corporations, billion-dollar corporations. See, this is how I know y'all not serious. This is how I know y'all not serious about nothing. You think that young brother that's in the streets that barely has an education, barely has a father, you understand me, grew up in a situation where he barely has any money, can't think cognitively and take opportunities? I'm talking about the young men. I'm not talking about the OGs. I'm talking about the young men. You think they are the root of the problem? Yet there's a whole entire capitalist market that benefits off their ignorance and benefits off their participation in their own downfall. I just need us to think. Because Charlie Kirk's last words were gang violence. His last words were gang violence. You know, as a Muslim, we was taught not to speak ill upon the dead. So I won't speak ill upon that man. But his last words were gang violence. And the thing about America is that terrorism in America, 99% of it is done by white men. Political violence, 99% of it is done by white men. I mean, can anybody correct me? So what does that mean? Can anybody give me a breakdown of what does that mean for 99% of these things to be done by what? Can somebody give me a breakdown? Can somebody tell me what that means that is a fan of this type of rhetoric? Does it speak to a cultural problem? Does it speak to a neurological problem? What does it speak to? What does it say? If every time we look at a statistic of something going on in the Black community, then we can attribute it to something, a cause, a root. We can say that there's a culture problem, that there's something wrong with these blacks. We can contribute it to something, but what does that mean on the other side? Can somebody give me a diagnosis? You talking about don't start a bullshit narrative. Everything on social media is a narrative. Every single thing that's happening in this country is politicized. We running a narrative on everything because they running every narrative on us. White girl gets killed by black man. Narrative. Black men are nothing. Narrative. That's all we got in this country. It's narrative warfare. You can't decide when you want it to be cut on and cut off. You don't get to decide that. Not if you participating in one. You don't get to decide when we cut on compassion and when we cut it off. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to decide now we get to be human because it's a white man that died. When it's a black man that dies, there's no humanity. You don't get to decide that. If you don't do it for all people, then it's for nobody. It's for no people. You don't get to decide that. So y'all can't tell me when to be compassionate and when not to be. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to decide. We can't talk about the kids that's killed over there because of the war. But if there's somebody that happens over here, we can. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to decide that I can't care about, or you know what I mean, the people that's dying by the senseless violence every day. The victims, we talk about the perpetuators of violence, but the victims are never painted in any brush as human, because even if there is some black on black violence, these are black people dying. You don't get to participate in the degradation and then all of a sudden act like you a savior. It don't work that way. America's going to continue to run psyops all around you. It's going to continue to run psyops. If you don't want it to, then cut off social media, because everything on social media is now a psyop. Any mass organized, and by the time we get to a level where political people are talking about it, it's an agenda. You don't get to cut it off. In the worst time, in the time that you have, listen, we're not in a time where we get to just allow things to simmer. People are not smart enough to even know what to think about things, so you can't even allow them to fester in their own thoughts, because what they're going to do is they're going to pick up somebody that is on social media that has a negative agenda. They're going to tell them what to think. They're going to take those words, then they're going to reverberate that on their platform, or when they're having a conversation with somebody, then that becomes the thought patterns of the collective. No, we're not letting nothing fester. Because that's how these things happen. And if you're not being hyper vigilant with your mind, then you don't get to decide what you think. Because cognitive warfare is controlling how you think. It controls how you think. It controls how you see the world, how you see yourself. It controls your identity by permanently rewiring your neuroplasticity. And I know who got time to be thinking about all of this stuff. Well, I do. I got time to research these things because I care about speaking towards the root of a problem and not just the problem itself. And there's no easier way to see a psyop working than to see how people react and respond to certain situations. It's amazing how humanity comes out when it's somebody you find favor for. But the humanity in the rest of the day, for your own people, for international events that are happening daily, disappears. Why? Is it because somebody's famous or not famous? How are you a Christian only when it's somebody that's famous? I'm just confused. Do the children that's dying not matter? The ones that's getting shot up in the streets or the ones that's getting killed in wars? Does that not matter? But because it's a famous figure, it matters. I don't think y'all understand how far gone we've become as human beings to where they decide what we care about, how we feel, how we think. And it's more evident than ever. As soon as a mass event happened, I just sit back and I watch. I say, this man just scrolled past them kids dying, and now he's going to say prayers for this person. Now, if you were consistent in your humanity, then I can give you credit for your compassion. But there is no consistency in the humanity today. There's no consistency. So everything that we see that's happening right now, and again, they're going to utilize this thing. It's going to be politicized. It's going to be politicized. You got that right. Just watch what they're doing. Watch what they're doing. Watch where this goes. A movement has a martyr now. You thought it was bad at first. I don't know how much y'all know about the world and where things are going. And I don't think most people are prepared for the 2030 future. But they just got the greatest martyr that they could ask for. They gonna manufacture fear, centralize power. They gonna privatize the future. Even though nationally crime is actually trending down. And see, some of you all, I think you might not be that smart. I ain't gonna say you're not smart, but maybe you don't have time to think. Now, my brother Rasta say, you acting like it's okay this man lost his life. I don't think it's okay when nobody lose their life. I don't think it's okay when Palestinian children lose their life. But those are the same people that tell me I shouldn't care about that. I'm just trying to understand, is there some life that I should care about more than others? Because if I go on the news and I type in deaths that happen across America, I'm going to see violence and murder all throughout America. Why should I give one more compassion than the other? I don't think that white man should have killed that white man. I don't think he should have did that. I do not think that white man should have killed Charlie Kirk. The fact that white man shot Charlie Kirk, man, pisses me off. Because I don't think the war is a violent war. The war is a psychological one. So when that white man shot Charlie Kirk, I seen how they're going to martyrize this and use it. I hate that white man shot Charlie Kirk. Now they're going to get what we call the cathedral effect. He's going to get baptized as a saint. He's going to get baptized as a saint in death. A hero's journey. And it's going to help manufacture consent for whatever comes next. But if y'all really want to be compassionate about what's going on in America, y'all should type in your search and go look at all of the death that has happened in this country over the last week. And just take some time to think about that. Because when your compassion is just based on what's trending, your heart and your emotions is being controlled by what they allow you to care or feel for. Like, I have so much compassion, especially for our people. Like it stirs up emotions just thinking about it. I've lost more real life friends just when I was in high school than most people even have as friends today. So when it comes to death and things of that nature, yes, my heart is a bit numb because I've dealt with a lot of death in my own life. People that I actually know, not people on social media that are critics of politics and Black people. I'm talking about people that I actually care for. And I don't believe in political violence because I don't think it actually makes any progress. I actually think it makes things worse. But some of you all, man, I just feel like some of you all are real. What's the guy in the Django name? The character that Uncle Samuel Jackson played. I feel like a lot of you all acting like that though today. I didn't know the level of influence that Charlie Kirk had over the young Black minds in America. I didn't know he had that. I didn't know y'all was watching him and y'all had that much love for him. I did not know. Because I grew up off like Black revolutionaries, so I would never listen to somebody like him like teach me about Black people in America and Black culture and the perpetuation of things that's happening in America as a source of truth. That would never be my source of truth. So I can see how a lot of you all are developing the identity that you do because these are the type of characters and people that like you venerate, that you honor. I did not know. I'm being honest. I did not know he had so many Black fans. I grew up off Minister Farrakhan, so I ain't never need to see nobody else that don't look like me tell me about Black people. And if I ever want to hear about statistics, I would rather go research them my own than to listen to somebody else crafted argument to make me feel less than. Because I'm going to tell y'all the realest shit on the planet Earth. Nobody ever contributes, right, big pharma to white culture. Nobody contributes the military-industrial complex to white culture. You get what I'm saying? Nobody contributes the cathedral church and all of its pedophilia to white culture. Nobody contributes these things. But all of a sudden, as a Black man, and young Black men and Black men, particularly in this country, are supposed to be demonized because less than 1% of us commit 99% of the crime that Black people are attributed to commit to, even though those numbers are skewed because even the FBI doesn't correctly classify violent and crimes committed by each racial group, particularly very well. So we don't even know the methodology of the data collection itself. All we know is the words utilized. And he was a very intelligent communicator. Very intelligent communicator. So you don't know how, Socrates was an intelligent communicator. He would go around using that Socratic method. He would make people feel like they were fools, even if they knew what they were talking about. And see, I always thought debate is the art of manipulation and deception because it doesn't matter who's correct. It matters who controls what you feel. There's psychological tactics being utilized. So your mind is being manipulated. And because you don't have the time to go do the research, that intellectual laziness then becomes your thought. And now, when you're speaking to somebody else because you thought that this person presented an argument that even you couldn't defend, then they must know what they're talking about. Then it changes the way that you think. Then it changes the way that you view. The whole time, though, there's a counter argument for that. There's a way to show those numbers being wrong, right? There's a way to show the positioning in the context added to the numbers being completely deceptive. So this is why, man, when I hear like when the masses listen to debates and you're not intelligent enough to even have discernment in the things that you're listening to, it's just brainwashing. You have to understand, like, America, man, walking around with like seventh grade intellect, right? It's not like people you're not seeing, and Charlie was a man who would go around campuses, which is a very powerful technique. If you want to get the youth, which are the most politically active group in America, specifically on a college campus, then you would pay somebody that they can go across the campuses and argue with youth who are just in the development of their mind and not really, and they're mostly emotional, intellectually emotional. So therefore, they're going to use more emotions than they are facts, and they don't have enough experience to even create an argument that thinks about all sides in a manner that is positioned specifically for the media. Do you think they was prepared for that? No. But there's not currently like a black group in America that's like paying intellectual black men to go across America and like, you know, spread ideas that make us think and spread our ideas and agendicize our ideas towards our political power and future. I just see things for what they are. Mr. R.S. Miller, I've never seen Charlie Kirk debate a scholar. I'm not sure if he's ever done that. I've never seen him debate one of our scholars. I've seen him debate college kids, which is like, that doesn't even count in my book. That's not even debating at that point. That's teaching. That's, you know what I mean? This is just intellectual manipulation at that point. I don't know where the arguments are. Maybe somebody can point me to him. I haven't seen him debate the scholars. So I don't give credit to that whatsoever. Somebody say he was only 31. Tupac was 25. Nipsey Hussle was 33. You know, Fred Hampton was what, 20, 21? I mean, age ain't got nothing to do with it. If you will be a global political figure, then you got to stand up for what, you know what I mean? Like you in that position, you in that position. But the average college student going in there, they 19 years old. So 31, 19, that's a big gap. So again, I think that it's a very smart tactic. I think it was a very smart campaign that they ran. You understand me? And it was a very smart media campaign that they ran where they clip up certain things and they push it out. That's just narrative warfare. That's just intelligence. That's a very great campaign. Most likely like CIA funded or something and FBI funded or whatever it may be. But I think they need to stop on that side. The white man that shot Charlie Kirk, man, I think It's horrendous. I think white people need to stop shooting each other politically. But we was always taught to go vote politically. Them boys out there, they out there wilding. They out there wilding. I just think that in there has never, I don't see the focus on campaigns that white people push to try to stop political white violence. I don't see it. I don't see them trying to stop political white terrorism. Can anybody tell me? I know we weren't about like black gang violence, but I've never seen it. Like Donald Trump, a little white kid tried to kill Donald Trump, man. Did y'all see that? That was crazy. A little white kid tried to kill Donald Trump. JFK, Abraham Lincoln, now Charlie Kirk. White people, y'all ain't gonna stop. Y'all need to stop shooting at each other because y'all making it bad for the country. This is getting too violent. They say the shooter is still at large. No. I seen a white dude get arrested. You telling me that's not the shooter? The world we live in, man. Ronald Reagan was shot by a white person, walked up to Ronald, pop. Y'all got to stop this, man. And I think 100% we should politicize this. Yeah, I would have had a conversation with him. You know, see me, I think so differently. I'm always coming from a different angle. They arrested an old white man, an elderly white man. It's always a lone shooter, of course. I don't know how they be having all the security and then somehow these lone shooters be doing everything alone. It's always a lone shooter. I don't even understand why it'd be a lone shooter. You telling me, because here's my thing. Lone shooters don't make sense because I'm sure that there's groups of shooters that want to do things. How come it's always the lone shooter that's successful, but the organized group don't get away with nothing? I'm just trying to understand it. So you telling me the organized group don't have no successful hits behind them, but the lone shooter, all of them hit successfully. But again, that's just the way my brain be thinking. Anyway, man, there are much more important things going on in the world. You said I wouldn't share in spaces. Why you say that? I had Robert F. Kennedy on the show. Why you think I wouldn't have had him on the show? I had Robert F. Kennedy on the show. Why you think that? I can see, man. I'm a master communication, a master conversationalist, and a master communicator. I can speak to anybody. You understand me? What I do as I'm preparing to speak, I just really think about what is the angle in which I want to talk about that contributes to society. Because if I'm talking to you, it can't be about nothing. It has to be a reason. What's today? Today is the 10th, September 10th, a day before September 11th. Now, this is a powerful day because, you know, it is a day that reminds us of violence in this country. You know, in the old calendar, this would be September 10th. This would be 7/10. Those who know, y'all get that breakdown. But Timothy McVeigh committed some violence around some things that happened around this day when he did his in April. You know, the first school shooting happened because of the Waco incident, you know, when the government was trying to stop the sovereign rights of the white folks that was out there. And what they did is they inspired him to then go commit some terrorist acts upon Oklahoma building But that particular act was also inspired by somebody who had did it before him. So it's like this long line of like white terrorism in this country that I don't see the left or the right talking about whatsoever, because they don't want to make it like a cultural thing. But again, America's about to go through its biggest America has went through its biggest transformative phase. With the death of Charlie Kirk, this becomes a moment of martyrism that will be, evangelized and sanctified for years to come. He will become the face of the movement. You understand me? To push all their ideas behind, and it radicalizes an entire group of young men who looked up to him. And it even shuts off, a lot of, even there's a lot of young black men who, listen to this person. And in a moment of compassion is actually one of the most dangerous moments in the country. I think it's powerful when you think about how many people can die and nobody cares. But if one person dies, the country stops for at least a moment, right? And again, it's selective compassion, right? It's selective humanity, it's selective outrage. What I believe that people need to be focused on right now is really getting your community together. Those people that you can build with. I mean, right now, you should be really focusing on creating tight knit communities, tight knit groups of people that you can build with, people that you can really trust, people that you have real loyalty to, people that if anything hits the fan, you can depend on, right? You develop that community of people as strong as possible so that no matter what happens, you have resilience. Anything can happen in this country. A match can be lit in this country and it all goes up in flames. You want to start preparing for survival methods. You want to decrease your spending on frivolous things. Women, I need you to make sure that you're not pressuring your men into overspending, because they need to be investing. They need to be buying land, and they need to be developing themselves and their mind during this time. When I say save yourself, it is not a message saying that we can't depend on each other. Nah, the message is saying that when you're by yourself, that is the time you need to save yourself, because our private selves are the ones that need saving. The way that we overindulge in our gluttony and our greed and our lust, right? In shameful ways that activates that spirit within to do self-judgment, and the lack of discipline, the over scrolling and doom scrolling on the phone, right? Being inside of social media, knowing that you should be connected to a goal, but having developed a system, that is when the ability to increase your capacity to save oneself needs to be activated. So it's the activation of self-reliance and self-discipline. I'm on my way to Houston. My brother Yaki and Raquel, the capacity expert, will be in the building. I think it's probably going to be the most powerful show that we've had thus far, just because each one of these people can help you unlock a level within yourself never seen before. It is an activation of rebirth. This country will continue to be more divided than ever. There's no more united America ever. There's no idea, there's no illusion of America being united. It's just find your tribe. So with this whole thing of Charlie Kirk, him being killed by a white man, or the white man that killed Charlie Kirk, man, I think it's terrible violence because of the way they're going to utilize this death to create martyrism behind an agenda that is already in action, but now they're going to be able to overstep some things. I think it distracts people from major events that are happening in the world. And now we're about to get sold all of this rhetoric from somebody who was just evangelizing the words that black men are demons and deserve to be locked up forever. Because that's what I heard from him. That's what I heard from that side this week, specifically this week. So y'all join me. Go to 19keys.com/tour. Let's build in real life. Again, I said this at the beginning. Things are going to continue to get worse. We're in solar cycle 25. Things are going to continue to heat up. You know, things are going to continue to heat up. Things are going to continue to get bad in this country. But as things are falling, we should all be thinking about, what are we building? How are we protecting ourselves? How are we setting ourselves up to thrive in the future? Because I don't want us to get distracted from the technological, societal development that's happening all around us, that is advancing so fast. Every single day you have to ask yourself, am I still focused? What is it that matters the most? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it connected to who I am? So that's my thoughts. You understand me? Be careful in these social media streets. And don't let nobody convince you, you understand me, that the devil is not out there to deceive you, because he is. They want your mind, and you have to be the one who controls it. Go through a rebirth phase and let your old self die and enter into the next phase that is required for this next level of life, this next journey in life. I hope those words hit you. Let that old self die. The old ways you used to do things, the old ways you perceive yourself, the old ways you thought about life. Be open to a higher version of yourself consistently. Take some time to think. Think about what parts of yourself that might be wrong. Think about where you might have actually been deceived in your thinking. Think about how you might have been programmed to believe what you believe. If you're not constantly reiterating and like testing on your own self-development, then you might be defending a part of yourself that is manipulated. You might be defending a part of yourself that is completely brainwashed and you not know it. So again, people will keep asking what I want to know about the whole thing. Charlie Kirk's last words was gang violence, and he was murdered by a white man. That bears the question, what's the real gang in America? What is the real gang in America? Peace to the family, peace to the gods. I'll see y'all on tour. Comment tour. Go to 19keys.com/tour. Grab your tickets. Houston is almost sold out completely. So we might have to do a second show in Houston. But when we get out there, make sure you pull up on us. The time is now. I'm sipping on that Superman tea. Go ahead and get yours.